Hello guys, Noel Cardona here. Today's lesson is about the secret to trigger massive action as an entrepreneur. From my journey, the one that probably you are going through at the moment, and from studying behavioral and psychology sciences, I've been able to get to know myself very well. And I encourage you to do that in the same way as you go. The reason why is because you are the best raw material that you will ever have, and sometimes the only raw material that you will have during your journey. Therefore, the knowledge that you have about yourself is the one that will enable you to push through obstacles and through challenges and to come out the other way, on the other side, to come out stronger, faster, smarter, and luckier if that's what you rely on. So from my lessons, from my journey, from the time where I was trying to take massive action, and for some reason that would fall apart, especially in the cases where I would take massive action, but I wouldn't be able to sustain it. I've basically brought two lessons for you from that. And those two lessons, those two categories in which I break this down are, the first one is about lack of clarity. When you're trying to achieve something, let's say, silly example, if you are in a very, very dark room, and you know there are some objects on your way. If something happens, if you all of a sudden hear a very loud noise, even though you want to run fast, you will be aware that there are obstacles on the corridor or on the way out that will make you fall, that will trip you up, and therefore you will have to go slower as you go outside, as you head for the exit. Now, if in the same scenario you are in this place and you hear a loud noise, but there is enough light for you to see your obstacles ahead, you will be able to go a lot faster, to exit a lot faster from that place. And what I want to say with this is that clarity is about speed. Lack of clarity, obviously, is about the opposite. When you have lack of clarity, all that to do to you and to your goals is to slow you down towards you're going, and you don't really want that. This lack of clarity comes from two places, as I found with many experiences and many lessons that I've got on my journey as an entrepreneur. And those two places are internal and external. Those two normally combine in you, inside you, to create the person who you are. So as an entrepreneur, and that's what I wrote this, as an entrepreneur, the lack of clarity when it's external, you can divide it in three different subcategories. Probably you've heard about this many times before, but I want to connect this lack of clarity with the lack of speed that you might have at the moment, and with the fact that lack of clarity comes from, in this case, from an external source. And that external lack of clarity can be broken down into who, what, and where. I'm talking about here, yes, about the product, services, the business that you want to create to achieve your financial goals or your freedom goals, whatever it is, whatever is the reason you are creating this business. You will always will have to answer these three questions. Who you want to serve? Is it young people? Is it elderly people? Is it executives? Is it people without employment? The what you want to give them? Is it a service? Is it a software? Is it a physical product? Is it a bakery? Is it coffee? Whatever it is, what is the result you want to give them? Is it happiness? Is it support to go to university? Whatever it is. And the third one is where. where you find them. As an entrepreneur, I would say that the first two are not as difficult to answer than the last one. As an entrepreneur, most of your time should be dedicated to that where, to find where the people who you identified you want to serve are gathering, so you can actually talk to them. And that, my friend, that's not easy at all. That's why as an entrepreneur you need to work and you need to learn about direct marketing. And direct marketing is what allows you to do, through trial and error, find and locate these places where your people gather, and on top of that, to test that place, to find out if the people who's gathering there actually are willing to work with you or need what you're offering them. This external on its own is a massive piece of taking massive action as an entrepreneur. Why? Because even on the who side of things, if you're going to write a sales letter, if you're going to create a web page, if you're going to create a video like this, if you have no clarity about the who, then your words will have no effectiveness, because you are talking to everybody and therefore you're talking to nobody. There is a reason why this video is talking about entrepreneurs and it's not talking about managers, or it's not talking about some other employees. It's because I want to talk to you guys, entrepreneurs. I want to work with you, and you are the kind of people I want to serve. Now, that's the external part, and that's where you need to focus your time. Now, the other part of this lack of clarity is internal. And entrepreneurs, I would say, is kind of, at some point, we are selfish, because we need to serve ourselves first. And just wait for a minute before you think that I'm saying something completely wrong here. Entrepreneurs need to serve themselves first in order to be able to create and sustain the energy they need to actually be able to create the products that I was talking about. And that internal clarity has to do with many things, but it boils down to one thing: to identify your needs. If as an entrepreneur you don't identify those needs, and if your business, if your idea is not aligned with those needs, basically you won't be able to sustain massive action. You might be able to take massive action, but it will stop very soon along the way. And that's why you need to work on your internal clarity to identify those needs. Now, what do I mean by those needs? Well, those needs come in terms of the activities you do, especially in your business, the place where you live, the people you are surrounded. And for example, I used to have a business, a retail business, selling watches here in London. And even though I enjoyed a lot working on that business, every day in the back of my mind, I felt that yes, we were making money. Yes, we had customers and we were growing the business. But there was something telling me that that wasn't the business I wanted to be in. It wasn't creative enough. It wasn't about knowledge. It wasn't about something where I continuously could create and innovate. And when we closed that business and started this one, I realized that yes, there is a massive difference, and the activities that you do in your business need to be aligned with your needs. As well, the place, some people prefer sunny places, some others prefer rainy places. Like my wife, she likes the fact that in England rains all the time, and I like sunny places. Anyway, we find a middle ground. People, I know this very well because when I moved to UK from Colombia, I left my family behind. My parents and all my family is there. And in many times, if you are too attached to certain people, that's not going to give you happiness. And in summary, what I'm talking about is that, as I talk in my book, The Intentional Winner, this book there, which was the last one I wrote, is that your needs basically are connected with the balance that you need to find. You need to find a balance, and you need to find your needs to know how that balance looks like. Then you connect that balance and those needs with your external or with external ones, which are basically your business. So that lack of clarity, which you need to destroy, which you need to have a crystal clear vision, I know that, of where you're going, who you are, and how all that looks like, your vision in life. So that's what you need to work on there. And that's what I wrote here. You need to work tirelessly, all the time. You need to watch yourself. You need to watch what you're doing. You need to watch the projects you're coming up with, what your guts are telling you in order to find that clarity. And that's something, my friend, that never ends. You never stop working on your clarity, because we all change. Our passions change. People change. Where they are change. So that clarity, if you have that, that's a massive trigger to take massive action, but especially is a massive trigger to sustain it. Okay, that's very, very important. Now, the second category here is one which is, I call, a hidden enemy. It's your hidden enemy, because it won't show until you've done everything you're supposed to do and somehow it doesn't work, and somehow you find yourself sabotaging in a very smooth way what you're doing. And this is happened to me, and I think it's happened to any entrepreneur who's actually tried to do something big. And this is the lack of self-worth. Lack of self-worth is when there is either a quiet or a loud voice in your head telling you you cannot do it, you won't be able to do it, that you, whatever you do, your past or your background is not entitled you to achieve what you want, that your family, the family where you come from, or they and their financial status will not entitle you to achieve what you want. Or maybe that you cannot go to university because your family didn't go to university, or you cannot be a champion because nobody in your family has been a champion, that you cannot win an Oscar or a Nobel Prize because your family is so humble and they always worked in small jobs, and therefore you're far away from that. But guess what? It's nothing to do with that. Hopefully you understand that from here. That lack of self-worth, as I said, comes out in your life like that voice and telling you these things that you shouldn't listen to. And this lesson is especially for you to identify and to break them down again into the external and internal subsections of the lack of self-worth. So where this lack of self-worth comes from, I would tell you, its external part is because you were told, one of them, you were told by a parent, a relative, a friend, the media, that you are not worth it, that you cannot do it, that you're too fat, that you're too short, that you're stupid, that you're silly. Many, many things that people just would say to them because somebody has told them, or because they've grown so negative because of their own lack of self-worth, that they just transmit that they just transfer that to other people with any regard to your well-being. And that's why you need to be very careful how you separate yourself from other people, especially the negative ones. That lack of self-worth, you were told or you were shown. What I mean by that is the environment where you grew up will potentially and will tell you actually more than people will tell you directly. The reason for that is because you learn by example. I would say 60-80% of what you learn in life is by example. You did it when as a child, and you do it nowadays, especially from the people that you look up to. People with authority, you just pick up their habits, the way they do things. You can see that easily in the way you dress, in the way you talk, in the way the places you go on holidays. All that is picked up from your environment, and you do it yourself. And that's just the way we are wired. The way we survive is by taking supposedly the best practices around by example. And therefore, if you grew up in a home where your parents were alcoholic, or they would take drugs, or your friends would take drugs, or your friends were in a gang, and that's the best thing you could see around, then potentially you will pick that up as an option, as a life path, and you wouldn't do otherwise because you are not aware of any other option. So it's kind of, you are shown what is available, you think is nothing else available, and therefore you start going through that path. When you get the wrong results by going through that path, that basically fits back into your self-worth, because you said that's what it is, that's what I am, that's what I know nothing else, and I basically wouldn't even think about getting out of here because I didn't even know there is another world out there. And that's about the external part of the self-worth. All that grows with you, that's your education, and you somehow create glass walls and a glass ceiling around you, which will not allow you to move very much. And because you're convinced that that's true, then that's going to be your self-worth. You will box yourself into very, very small area, and you won't move from that. And that's different, by the way. That's different from your comfort zone, because your comfort zone could be a big one, still not allow you to move, but you could have a very, very good level of self-worth. You could have a lack of self-worth and still have, you will still have your comfort zone. And that's very important to know. Now, that's the external part. The internal part of your lack of self-worth comes from all this external feedback, and then you believe it. You believe that you can that you cannot go ahead and work with your projects. You start believing that you're stupid, that you're not intelligent enough, I prefer that one, and that all the technicalities that take to go ahead and to get out of that box that was created by the external environment, by your parents, relatives, friends, the media, you believe all that and you become paralyzed. Because as soon as you believe something 100%, then your subconscious mind will work to make it a reality. If you believe that there is another world, and then you definitely, doesn't matter how you can go out there and make it, you will. But if 100% you believe that it's not possible, there is no other way for you, it doesn't matter your background, then you will stay there. You won't believe it, you won't make it. And those are the stories that you create for yourself. Let's say that you had a weak environment, weak education, your external feedback, and then you try to push through a new challenge. The first thing you're going to get, probably, normally, that's what happens, is that you're going to get rejection, but not once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times. And the amount of rejection that you're going to be able to go through without giving up, then it will have to do with the stories, with the type of stories that you told yourself, with how that environment that you grew up in shaped you up for that challenge, to how much you're going to resist before you give up. All that is to do with how you take action. So hopefully you get the big picture here. Now, to finish, I want to bring a part of the book, Release Your Brakes, from John Newman. It's a very good book, out of print now. If you try to find it on Amazon, it's going to cost you like £500 or something like that. But you can find it for about $15 on internet. The PDF version, official version, not illegal one, $15. From actually the PACE organization that followed his legacy, I should say, in this case, and he calls it the 4 dimensions of the behavioral part of your mind, of your behavior. I call it, as I understand it from him, I call it in a more simple way, which is the action taking 4 dimension concept, which is when you come to this world, you have several things, okay, with you, and you use those things to go ahead to take action in life. One of those things is your talents. And my friend, you and I and everyone is born with a talent. And I believe the talent that we all have is that of being able to learn and to become a master on anything we want. And you have your brain, if you can understand what I'm saying, and if you can master what I'm saying, if you have the willingness to do that, then that talent is going to be fulfilled. I mean, as long as you identify that talent and you align that with your needs and activities, place, people, that talent is going to work, and that talent is going to help you go ahead. Of course, when we talk about talent, we talk about musicians, and we talk about football players, and you talk about some genius kids or scientists which are amazingly intelligent. But that's like 1% of the population. I would say 99% of the people, we all have the talent of being able to be consistent, be disciplined, and become a master at what we do. And that's the first dimension of action taking. The second dimension is information. And nowadays, my friend, is the cheapest part of everything, I would say. Nowadays, you'll find very good information, lots of information. Obviously, you need to be careful where you get it from. But in my book, The Mental Breakfast, this information which John Newman calls or labels as information, I basically talk about a method, which is the method that the people who you follow, the people you want to emulate, the successful people you want to emulate, actually uses to achieve what they achieve. And that's a lot better than just information. Scattered information is not very useful. A proper method of doing something will take you there faster and is more, is easier to understand, is more valuable to you. Now, the motivation, that's the third part of the action taking 4-dimension concept, which is what is motivating you to take that action, okay? And basically I talked about this earlier in terms of your lack of clarity and your needs. Your needs is what gives you the motivation to go ahead and do things. As I said in my book, The Mental Breakfast, a need is something that survives the tests of failure and time. If after a while of trying something, you still need it, and you still, after failing, you still think and feel that you need to go ahead, and it doesn't matter what, then you have a need, you have a winner. Because if you base a project on a want, you probably will give up at the first obstacle, and that's critical for you to understand. So there you have the motivation. We have the talent, we have the information, and you have the motivation. But, and this is the eye-opening part from John Newman, you might have all this. You might have a massive talent. You might have the best information, the best method that you can ever have. You have amazing motivation. You really need to do that. But if you have the wrong emotions in the mix, you won't be able to take action. And John Newman brings up an example, very good example, which is where you are sitting at a restaurant and they serve you a steak. It looks amazing. It looks like you would really eat it. You have what you need. You have the forks, you have your teeth, you have the information, which is steak, okay? And then you have the motivation, you're hungry, you want to eat that steak. But actually, there is a missing piece of the information. The steak is horse meat steak. Then, once you know that, immediately, something comes to play, which is the emotions. Then you feel disgusted if you don't eat horse, and you won't eat the steak. What that means, basically you won't take action. So you have the talent, you have the information, you have the motivation, but the emotions kick in and then you won't take action. And that's what happens, my friend, in many projects in your life, actually in every minute, every day of your life. And I want to tell you that because one of the worst emotions you can have as an entrepreneur to go ahead and achieve your dreams is this one, is the lack of self-worth. Like you feel you are not worth it, like you feel like you cannot do it. Many times it's simply because you were told you are not worth it, because you were shown the opposite of what actually would take you to where you need to be, the education of your parents, relative, the media. And if you don't get rid of, if you don't work on that lack of self-worth, then those emotions will stop you from taking action. That, my friend, is the lesson for today. I hope you've learned, you've understand these two massive obstacles for you as an entrepreneur to take action. I hope you use it, I hope you study it, I hope you observe yourself on the way, on your journey of transformation to become the champion you want to become. Thank you for your time. Go to noelcardona.com to know about more about my books, about my videos, about resources, about many things that will take you to a high performance achiever, that will make you become that will make you transform that raw material that you are into a diamond, into somebody who will push through brick walls, through obstacles like if there wasn't tomorrow, with no fear, mastering your emotions, getting rid of your lack of self-worth, having 100% clarity where your needs are, where you're going, what you want to do. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in another lesson. Bye for now.